You have prayed the same prayer so many times, you have stopped expecting an answer. And the hardest part is not the problem. The hardest part is the quiet. You keep asking and heaven says nothing. So let me show you something before this is over. That the silence of God is not the absence of God. There is a reason the author sometimes stops narrating. And when you see it, you will stop reading his quiet as his neglect. Look at how honestly David prays. Psalm 13, verse 1. How long wilt thou forget me, O Lord? Forever. How long wilt thou hide thy face from me? That is not a polished prayer. That is a man who feels forgotten. And notice, and this is in your Bible, God preserved the prayer of someone who thought God had gone silent on him, which means the feeling you are ashamed of, the feeling that you have been overlooked, is not disqualifying. It is scriptural. David does not lose his faith here. He aims his confusion at the only one who can answer it. Then verse 2, how long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart daily? All right, read that slowly. When God is quiet, David says, I keep taking counsel in my soul. In other words, when heaven stops speaking, you start filling the silence with your own conclusions. And your conclusions in the dark are almost always wrong. That is the real danger of a quiet season. It is not that God stops working. It is that you start narrating his silence with fear and you decide he does not care when he has never said any such thing. Part 2, why the hire stays hidden. I want you to see this. Isaiah 55, verse 8. For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. Stay with me, because that is not God being distant. That is God explaining the silence. Verse 9. For as the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts. Look at that again. He does not say, my ways are hidden from you. He says they are higher than you. Those are two very different things. A thing can be higher than your sight and still be entirely for you. Now put those two texts side by side. David feels forgotten below. God says his ways are higher above, which means the silence you are living in is not empty space. It is elevation. He is doing something at a height your prayer has not caught up to yet. Think of the seed in the ground. For a long time, the field looks like nothing is happening. No sound, no green, no proof. But underneath the quiet dirt, roots are forming. Heaven's silence is often the sound of roots. He is not ignoring you. He is establishing you where the eye cannot follow. So come back to where David ends. He was not answered in that psalm. He simply decided in verse 5, I have trusted in thy mercy. That is the resolution, not a voice from the sky, but a trust that outlasts the quiet. So here's the one thing to carry. When heaven goes still, do not read it as rejection. Read it as a God whose ways are simply higher than your window. Stay near the field even when it looks like nothing. If this steadied you today, walk with me into the next teaching. I want to show you what God does in the waiting he never explains.